Hello, everyone. I see people joining the chat. Welcome to this webinar with the New Israel Fund, Connecting the Dots, How Protests Are Remaking Israel's Democratic Landscape. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to join. We're expecting quite a lot of attendees today. We're very, very excited to have you all with us. I see we're already up to 200 within the first 60 seconds. This is a very interesting and I think sometimes confusing subject to be talking about for Americans, but also for Israelis. Who is protesting what and how is it happening and who is doing, so that's what this is going to be about. We're going to try and parse it together with some of these amazing activists who are doing the work on the ground. So I'm going to welcome everyone again to today's webinar. We're almost up to 300 participants. We're expecting quite a few. And so my name is Elisheva Goldberg. I am NIF's Senior Director of Media and Policy. And I am so happy that you've all joined us today. I want to offer a warm welcome to all of our NIF supporters. A lot of people signed up, as I said, and I'm trying to give us a minute so that all those people can join. Thank everybody for being here. And of course, I also want to welcome all of our people from around the world, especially to our Canadian NIFers, and from all of our affiliates in Europe as well. So I'm just going to get a little bit started with some framing. This remains right now is an incredibly challenging time for every single person who cares about human life in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. We wake up every single morning to more and more bad news, images of dead people, wounded people, people coming home in states that we are sad to see, and it is often feels quite unbearable. And just for me personally, the thing that really keeps me going, and I mean this in a deep way, is that the people who are on the ground, that despite all of these oppressive dynamics and the dysfunctional government that is operating in Israel, and obviously the Hamas government in Gaza, that there are so many people working so hard every single day to hold their own humanity and the humanity of everybody living in the land. So NIF, as always, remains committed to a vision of a shared future for all, for Israelis and Palestinians, one that does not include war, that does not include bloodshed, where both peoples have the right to self-determination and can live side by side. And while that day may seem further away than ever, we are always committed to working towards it, no matter what. NIF is actively a forward-looking and strategic organization, and we always support our grantees and partners on the ground who are doing the work that will get us to tomorrow. So once again, I want to thank all of you, our supporters, and those joining us today for enabling this work. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you can expect in the call today. So our call today, we will talk with representatives from two NIF grantees and partners on the ground, Mehazkim and the Citizens Headquarters, or Citizens HQ. And I'll try and define those two organizations for you in a second, but it's important to say, even before I define what these organizations are and who the people are who we're talking to, that these organizations are part of an ecosystem. Just like a tree doesn't grow on its own, it needs water, sunlight, nutrients from the soil. Social change movements are part of an ecosystem. They need different parts, different elements to grow, and no one organization is the only driver. So when we talk about the protest movements today and what contributes to their growth and hopefully to their ultimate success, I really think it's best to think of them in these terms as an ecosystem. So with that said, Mehazkim means, which is the first organization I'm going to talk about, means empowering or strengthening in Hebrew, and it is a progressive digital movement working to promote values, ideas, and solutions that will fuel the Israeli left. In my own words, Mehazkim runs campaigns that make it seem cool and smart to be a leftist and to deeply believe in the power of liberal democracy. It's a very awesome organization, and you'll hear more in a minute. Citizens HQ is a well-coordinated group of organizations. Again, this is an ecosystem. It's not just one or the other. It's the whole picture. And these groups, these organizations have partnered together to strategize and come up with the best ways to make social change and affect the public discourse in Israel. Their ultimate goal, and they really keep their eye on this prize, is to create political change. Mehazkim, which I just mentioned, is one of the organizations in this partnership, alongside a few others you may know, like Standing Together, Shatil, and Fake Reporter. So in this call, we're going to speak with two amazing upcoming leaders, Stav, Arnon, and Ater, who are part of these organizations and are helping breathe life into the protest movement in Israel. They're going to help us map the protests, and we'll get a sense of the interconnectedness of these protests with Israel's challenges more broadly. The challenges that came before October 7th and the ones that came after. And then for towards the middle and end of the call, we will turn towards the former member of Knesset, and Israeli legal activist and lawyer, Gaby Lasky, who's currently coordinating strategic legal defense for protesters. I also must mention that it is incredible to be on a call, and I am so pleased to be speaking with three women at a time when the discourse and decision-making in Israel is overwhelmingly dominated by men. I will remind us that there is not a single woman sitting around the table of Israel's war cabinet today. So I'm really, really pleased that this is an incredible all-star panel of women. Finally, one last word about NIF in this time. The New Israel Fund is constantly rethinking what works and developing new strategies to make sure we're doing some of the key things that we always believe in, which are, right now, we're calling them the 3 Ps. That's pushback for democracy, partnership, and peace. So pushback is a lot of what we're going to talk about in today's webinar. I'll just say one more word about the other 2 elements. One is this partnership element, where we very much believe that the only future is a shared future, and we demand that Jews and Arabs, we know that Jews and Arabs must live together in this land, and that is a primary way, the primary lens with which we see all of our work. And finally, we are always thinking about and working towards the conditions for real peace between everyone who lives here, in that land, in this land, in that land. We've been supporting the Hostage Families Forum since just about its inception. We gave 2 emergency grants to the women's protests, which you're going to hear more about. And finally, the woman who emerged as one of the clearest and most profound leading voices of this women's protest, Einam Zengukar, just received the New Israel Fund's top prize, called the Truth to Power Prize, in the name of Professor Bill Goldman. And it's a prize that's awarded to a single human rights activist every single year, to the tune of 100,000 new shekels. And so in short, I just want to say that the New Israel Fund has continued to support this whole ecosystem, and we'll keep highlighting the democratic messages that come out of it, just like we did before October 7th. Before I introduce these amazing women and give you their bios, please add your questions to the Q&A function in Zoom, and I will integrate them into the discussion, and I will also refer to them later in the program when we have the Q&A section after they've finished speaking. So here are the speakers, the shortest bios that I could possibly give you, because they'll also introduce themselves in a moment. Stav Arnon is the Deputy CEO of Citizens HQ. She's a prominent leader of the women's protest to bring the hostages home, a committed feminist activist. She has spearheaded numerous women's protests in Israel, elevating issues such as violence against women and sexual harassment. Ater is the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Mehazkim, a digital activism movement, and she serves as the digital lead at Citizens HQ. She is also one of the leaders of the women's protest to bring the hostages home, and as an Israeli left-wing activist, she specializes in digital organizing, mobilization, and digital communities for social change, particularly through WhatsApp-based political communities. You can ask her more about that later. So will both of you, first Mai and then Stav, tell us about yourselves and who you are?
Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Elisheva. Hello, everyone. It's really exciting to see so many people choosing to take their time tonight to be a part of this webinar. So thank you very much. I'm Mai. One of my first memories is my parents taking me in a stroller to a protest in Israel. So I come from a left-wing family and an activist family. Um, and I'm at Mehazkim for several years now. WhatsApp is my passion, but also yelling at a megaphone. Um, and I think October 7th really met me closely, relatively. I've lost some family members on October 7th that live in the South. My partner was enlisted for a reserve service for 4 months. And I still believe in peace, and I still think that the only way for us to continue is bring the peace and bring the hostages back and end this war. And at my work, as Elisheva said, a lot of my work is mobilizing and activating digital communities and physical communities to protest and to use their power in a political context.
Thanks, Mai. Stav.
Hi, everyone. I'm also very excited to participate in this panel. My name is Stav Arnon. I'm 34 years old, living in Tel Aviv. I'm a social worker and a feminist activist, as Elisheva said, and I'm working as the deputy CEO in the Citizen HQ. This collaboration between amazing organizations in the Israeli progressive camp, and the HQ is also, of course, enjoying the support of the NIF. And I have to tell you that I thought about something before this call, that for me as an activist, the NIF is always my first call if I need support and if I want to even start the protest. And I thought about how we all have this one person that you call to if you need help. And for me as an activist, it's the NIF. So it means a lot to me, and I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. We're glad to be that person for you. So I want to ask the first question. You told me yesterday that you see Mehazkim as kind of the connective tissue between a lot of the protests on the ground that are happening today. Can you walk us through, and I'm told that there are photos that will go along with this, some of those protests, and help us get a sense and a map in our minds of what they are?
Yes. So we're really in a special position as Mehazkim because as an organization, which our name is strengthening, we mainly strengthen other political or social protests and movements. And when we're in a connection with over 40 other organizations, a lot of them supported by the NIF. And those organizations really, some of them lead the protests. Before October 7th, we had a really big protest against the judicial reform, and it was already had its symbols and its locations. But since October 7th, this protest, some other protests joined this protest, and I would like to actually show you a map of what's going on. Every Saturday, if you can go, yeah. Every Saturday night, hundreds of thousands of people in Israel go out to protest. And right now, there are a few center protest locations in Tel Aviv. I'll say that around the country, there are a lot of other local protests, which are both connected to the hostages and ending the war and the fight for democracy. But the amazing thing happening in Tel Aviv, which is the center of the protests, is that all of those protests are happening in a 1 kilometer radius. So we can see it really on the map. If you can see on the left, the hostage square. The hostage square, it's where the hostage headquarters is doing a rally every Saturday night. It's the more mainstream rally with really like songs and speakers from the families, and from the more sad or I say it's the less provocative sentiment or the less rage sentiment. When we move from the hostage square, we get to Begin Bridge. Begin Bridge actually is led by a group of families that Elisheva mentioned one of them as the one who won the NIF award, Truth to Power. Einav Tsengauger is one of the leaders. And every Saturday night, those families and activists, and actually every day those activists are at this bridge, which is next to the government and military headquarters in Tel Aviv. And this is the more radical part of the protest. From there, we can move to the Democracy Square. At the Democracy Square, at the Kaplan Begin, you can see, first of all, hundreds of thousands of people used to come there before October 7th, and now there are thousands of people protesting there every Saturday. And you can see there also people fighting for democracy and for elections now in Israel, people that believe that Benjamin Netanyahu need to be replaced immediately and we need to go to elections as soon as possible, but also a protest to end the war led by partners of ours, such as Standing Together, which are a prominent part of leading this line of protest. And there are also some other groups, like there is the use of the family, of the hostage families, a new group, which is more radical than the Hostage Square, but not exactly on the same messaging as Begin Bridge. And on top of all of that, we have the women's protest, which when we think about our messaging and stuff, we'll talk about it more, we locate it between the Hostage Square and Begin, because we are trying to connect more people and radicalize and politicalize more people and get them into the hardcore part of the protest. And I think the really special part of Mehazkim is that we're really everywhere. We support the families, some of the families which are a part of the families hosted families headquarters from day one, and we give them some consult and give them the stage of the Mehazkim platforms, but the same for the Begin families. And we also have our stand at the Democracy Square, and we're really trying to be everywhere all at once. And it's a really weird and sad and hard time to be in all of those protests. It really is consuming, but it also gives me hope that people are still going out, and that at the end of the day, all of those protests are connected. At the end of the day, there is a flow between the Hostage Square, Begin Bridge, and the Democracy Square. People are moving from one to another, and at the end of the day, when the more radical part of the night comes, as you can see in some of these photos, the Ben Gvir's police is hitting all of us. So we're all in this together.
Thank you, Mai. That was really, really helpful and clarifying. I think the geography of seeing that, just the visualization is really, really clarifying for a lot of us. So really, thank you for that. I'm going to move to Stav. You, Mai, mentioned the women's protest, and you're both very involved in this one. And NIF recently supported the women's protest with 2 emergency grants, and we're also obviously very supportive. But I am interested, Stav, if you could just tell us, more about this protest, its rationale, how it started, and where it meets you.
So in the beginning of January this year, and I can't believe it's been 5 months already. I felt helpless and really frustrated, seeing this war going on and on and on, and another hostage deal after the first one was nowhere to be seen. And I remember sitting at home watching the news obsessively. I reckon like all of you. And I couldn't stop thinking about the women held in captivity and the horrific things that they're going through there. And my anger and frustration was like a heavy stone in my chest, in every news report of another deal opportunity that's been missed by our leaders that are absolutely dragging their feet for 8 months already in securing this second hostage deal. I felt like I can't stand by any longer. So I gathered 15 of my friends and activists. We're all like-minded women from all areas of life. And we decided that this was the time to take on to the streets. Until that point, the struggle for the return of the hostages was a struggle that was led by the hostage families. And we understood and we decided that this was the time to make this struggle become a general civic struggle. And we believe that this struggle is not only for the return of those people that were completely abandoned them there, but also for the fate and the future and even the identity of the Israeli society as a whole. As you mentioned before, we chose to appeal to women. And the first reason was that throughout history, women have always led struggles under the rationale of saving people's life above all. And we knew that we can hold the cabinet and the government accountable for the and responsible for the citizens' security. And we called for an explicit demand for a hostage deal now. And we also, as you mentioned before, we chose to call to the female voice because we are almost absolutely absent from the decision-making tables, and it was time to take over and to do it our way. And we were really surprised to see that thousands of women all across the country, from all ages, from all parts of society, answered our call. We have organized several national days of rage. Actually, the next one is happening tomorrow, and we have over 56 actually local points of protest from Rosh Pina up north to the Arava Junction down south. We also marched in Jerusalem from the Knesset, from the parliament to the Benjamin Netanyahu residency. We also protested outside of the member of the cabinet to demand a hostage deal. We actually blocked the Ayalon freeway numerous times. It became like almost a weekly activity, even though my mom wants to kill me because I'm pregnant and it's not safe anymore. We protested many times with photos of the women held in captivity, and as well photos of hostages that were kidnapped alive and were abandoned to their death, just like we heard the heartbreaking news yesterday about 4 more dead hostages. And we actually were really surprised to see that we got a massive media coverage. We were in all Israeli news channels and live broadcasting from all of our activities. And we were also mentioned in the New York Times, in the Guardians, and even Al Jazeera. Don't say it to Israelis. And I think that another very special things about the women protest, as Mai mentioned before, that we located ourselves in this delicate spot that many hostage families joined our action and activities over the months, families that never even protested before, and it was their first time participating in those kind of events, and families that were not openly political opponents and so on. And it seems like we managed to create escalation in a way to the family and to the public, that we now, after 5 months of activity, we can see that many people and in many stages are using our slogans and our messages and our signs. So I think that in that way, we really made a difference.
Thank you, Stav. This is already so informative, and we'll talk a little bit more about messaging with you in a second. But first, I want to go back to Mai and talk about some of the digital organizing that you've been doing. You told me a few stories, and I really want you to share them with everybody. Just a few examples of what you do and the effect that it's had, and how that works.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think the first thing I did on October 8th was to open a WhatsApp group, because this is what I know how to do. So on the day after October 7th, we opened a WhatsApp group with some hostage families, called it Deal Now, and we helped them, and we supported them creating content and distributing it as Mehazkim. And afterwards, we started understanding that the most important thing that we can do is take the digital communities and digital organizing practices that we do and use them to help people pressure the decision makers. On the first few months, it was really hard to go out on the streets. As Stav said, we didn't found the strength within ourselves to do so. But what we did before the first deal was invite people to send WhatsApp messages to the cabinet members and to the government members, and tell them to vote yes for the hostage deal, for the first hostage deal. It's really, we have some digital tools that we use called Walling, and you can simply click on it on WhatsApp, and then you get into a chat with the people we chose, the political the cabinet members or the government ministers that we chose. And you can either send a pre-prepared message that we wrote, or you can write your own message to those people. And some of them do answer. And we saw how this pressure of hundreds of messages being sent and thousands of people clicking and sending those messages really helped bring the deal. And I think those things that was most that I can say like we affected is after we did those things, Smotrich actually blocked his WhatsApp, so we won't be able to get WhatsApp messages anymore. I don't know if it's because of us, but it might be connected. And then a few weeks ago, there was a video of some female soldier hostages, and the video of their kidnap was released. And Smotrich said, I don't want to watch this video because I want to sleep at night. So Smotrich didn't want to get nightmares when he's constantly talking against a hostage deal. So we simply want to watch the videos. And when the families of those female hostages said, we want the public to see this video, and we're asking you to see this video, and we're asking the people making the decision about the deal to see this video, we asked our digital community to send this video to Smotrich. We couldn't send it to him on WhatsApp, so we found a way to send it to him on SMS. And we asked them, please send this video to Smotrich and tell him what you think he should do. And over 700 people clicked to send this message in less than 3 hours. And by that time, Smotrich's spokesperson released a message saying, "We confirm Bezalel Smotrich watched the video." So that was a really powerful moment. I don't know if it will make him change his mind, but making him accountable for his actions was a really empowering moment for our community. And I think empowering, as our name is a very strong part of digital organizing and physical organizing. And sometimes those two connect. I think we have a campaign called Fuck Ben Gvir. This campaign is running, you might have seen it in the photos at the beginning, the t-shirt. And we're running this campaign through the protests that we had last year against the judicial reform. And the main objective of it is fuck Ben Gvir for being a fundamentalist, fuck Ben Gvir for politicizing the police and for encouraging police violence, and fuck Ben Gvir for not wanting to return the hostages and end the war. And this great thing is that this shirt became really a symbol for defiance. And another way of connecting between the protests, if you go back to the Democracy Square, the Hostage Square, and Begin Bridge, on all of those you'll see fuck Ben Gvir t-shirts. And then the end of the day, they make the police really angry. Like you get hit more when you're wearing this t-shirt. But they give us power as activists to stand in front of a Machtazit. It's a really big truck with a water tank that they use to spray on us and to make us go, or standing in front of the forces of the police with this t-shirt and defy. And then we do it on the street, and we do it on social media when people are posting this to the politicians, when they're encouraging violence or talking against a hostage deal. And I think this campaign is a very strong one because it reminds us that the enemy of all of us is really the same, and the people we are trying to defy, and that at the end of the day, it's all connected once again.
Thank you, Mai. Inspiring in certain real ways. Stav, I want to keep this answer a little bit shorter because we're going to move on to Gaby Lasky, and then we'll bring everybody back for Q&A. But I did want to ask you about your messaging. There's a very different way that people have been seeing the hostage release deal in Israel and in America. And a lot of people also asking in the chat, and also I know so many people who are asking the question of sort of, we want to see an Israel that becomes a liberal democracy and cherishes equality. But right now, Israelis are not really there. Or a lot of Israelis are not really there. Obviously, there's a very significant group like you that will always be there. But how do we move beyond this? And how do you message the most, the important things that you want to say, and the moving in that direction to the Israeli public right now?
The things are difficult in here. It's hard times in the current political climate here in Israel. Even though it's hard for me personally to accept it, calling for an end of the war, it considered radical. Even even talking about ceasefire in the beginning was radical. You have to understand that how deeply Israelis are looking away when it comes to the terrible situation in Gaza. The Israelis news channels are rarely even showing photos or talking about the situation in Gaza, or making any kind of articles about what's going on there. So we understood that the only way to bring to ceasefire and to stop this horrific war was to focus on the hostage deal. As a left-wing activist, I knew that the only way to promote those topics of ending the war in front of the Israeli public was to link the return of the hostages to the end of the war. So for me to support the return of the hostages beyond, of course, the humanitarian and moral justification, which of course is the first priority for me, but it is also a strategic matter. I mean that things that I write on my personal Instagram, for example, about the starvation and the killing of innocents in Gaza, I don't think that they are useful in promoting the goal or the aim that we want to achieve. During this fragile and critical period, Israel is in the middle of the most significant political crisis, social crisis, security crisis, and the public discourse is changing rapidly. So we have to be very accurate and precise in our messages. So, and also to add something to all this situation is that in the recent months, a planned campaign has been launched against the hostage families, opposing the return of their loved ones from a radical right-wing extremist. And it was really horrifying to see that even the most fundamental struggle of sanctity of life, and you all know the importance of family in the Israeli society, and it was all under attack by those extremists, and the families whose life being a living hell since October 7th are now also enduring a hostile public discourse. And also Maya and I can tell that also us as an activist are suffering from the same things. So therefore, we strive to say messages that will help us gain mainstream support and also attract the families of hostages, as I said before, who are not political opponents in their usual times. So we call to a ceasefire to bring back the hostages, or we highlight how military action has failed to rescue hostages alive, or how it caused the death of more than 24 of them. Or for another example, we avoid attacking Benjamin Netanyahu for everything that he has done to us, in all areas of life. But we are talking specifically about his failure in securing a hostage deal. Some will say that definitely on purpose. And another example is to counter the government argument that it's always Hamas to blame for not promoting a deal. We always emphasize that while Hamas is Hamas, the responsibility for the Israeli lives lies on the government. And as Mai mentioned before about all those protests that are happening together simultaneously and seemingly on different issues, I don't think they interfere to each other, but instead they create complementary efforts and messages. And I believe that political unrest in the streets, even though it's not unified under the same specific message or slogan, it still helps us to reach our goals and to end this war.
Amen. Thank you, Stav. All right, I am going to shift our program a little bit to Gaby Lasky, and then we're going to bring you guys back and have the Q&A. So I'm going to invite Gaby Lasky, one of the most amazing legal activists of our time, to join us. Gaby Lasky will tell us more about her work, but I just will say that, the way that this ecosystem also works is that, my staff and so many other people are organizing protests, and then all these protesters are out there and they're being shot by the water cannons and they're being arrested by the police. And there's a whole legal team, a whole legal system that is set up that interfaces with those protesters and protecting those protesters. And Gaby is a part of a very strategic section of NIF's Civil Society Protection Hub, which is essentially a one-stop shop or a 911 for protesters. It started, in the judicial coup era when the pro-democracy protests were really getting going, and obviously shifted now that the protests are where they are. But Gaby, you can tell us more about that. But one of the spokes of this hub, which is, anything from psychological support to PR support to any, physical support, one of the very significant elements of this is legal support. And that's where you come in. So I'm going to read your bio, Gaby, and then we'll ask some questions and have a little conversation. So Gaby Lasky is a former Knesset member, a renowned human rights lawyer, and heads an independent law firm specializing in criminal, constitutional, and administrative law. She represents Israelis, Palestinians, and international activists in civil and military courts, and serves as the legal advisor to human rights organizations. And she is the legal expert advising the protest movement. I also just want to mention one thing here, which is that, we've been talking a lot about the Israeli Jewish protests primarily, but it's very worth saying that since October 7th, the ability of Palestinian citizens to protest, even hold a vigil with any kind of regularity, has been trampled by the police. And so I want to talk to you today about generally the right to protest for all citizens, both Palestinian and Israeli. But first, in your own words, tell us what you do. Like, what is your role in protecting these protesters? And what has it been over these last few months as these NIF grantees work together and everyone tries to build this movement?
Thank you for having me here. And before I begin, I want to say that it's really inspiring to see Stav and my in here tonight, because it means that young women are taking leadership roles in this demonstration, and it is really so important, and it's amazing to see them and to listen to what they have to say. Now, what I have to say is that we have created a very unique organization of legal defense for protesters in Israel. It is a volunteer organization. All of us are well-known criminal lawyers, but we're not out there in the office. We're part of the the movement, and so it happens a lot that I'm in a demonstration with my Democracy Now t-shirt or Bring Them Home t-shirt, and from there I have to run to the police station with my t-shirt and my things, and so are my friends. So we have created this team of lawyers that is spread all around Israel, and we are available 24/7. And our task is to let all demonstrators know that there is someone there to protect their rights, freedom of speech, freedom of demonstration, and their rights when they're detained, arrested, and things like that. And we have been going on since the judicial coup, and now through these new demonstrations after the October 7th, we have been in the ground. And we are such a unique organization that we have had partners from the world around trying to learn our methods of how do we defend demonstrators. So what we do is we have a special number, and we have people that are trained to be exactly where the police stands, in the sense that when there's someone that has been arrested, immediately we know who he or she is, to what police station they're taking them, and then we can bring legal aid, because we're all speaking all the time about normative people that don't have the number of a criminal lawyer in their phone. So first of all, they know that we're going to be there, and we get there, and we have a whole team of how to mobilize demonstrators to bring the demonstration from the street to the police station, so these people are not alone, and we continue the demonstration outside of the police stations. But not only we represent them and we give them legal aid during their time of arrest. If they are kept for the night, we represent them in court. But there's a lot of police violence and police brutality that we will speak later on about it. So in that case, we also present complaints to the special unit that takes complaint against police violence. So we present that, and we go to court regarding issues about the use or the misuse of police violence, or of using methods or illegal methods to disperse demonstrations, or other methods in order to try and stop the demonstrations and the right of freedom of demonstration. Now, there are organizations of NIF, or grantees organizations, that are experts in fields regarding all the different layers that you need in order to give this this whole protection of rights. So after the demonstrations, we have this kind of meetings, and we try to see if there are new issues regarding infringement of rights. And then together, as in the hub, we try to find the best measures in order to tackle those new tactics of the government and of the police, in order to defend not only the individuals, but the issue itself in giving the right of demonstration. I have to say that there are right-wing demonstrators in the Gaza frontier trying to stop the humanitarian aid. And these demonstrations, the police does not really try to stop them. The police doesn't really try to arrest the people that are doing this. And actually, I can say that regarding international law, it's not only a criminal offense in Israel, but it's also a war crime to stop legal aid or humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. So, and the police has become so political that these demonstrations go without arrests or complaints, while our demonstrations are being really we have represented about 1,500 demonstrators that have been arrested. There are several indictments already that are going on. And we have more than 100 complaints against police violence. So we can see that there is really a difference of how these kinds of demonstrations are treated when we see how the police react to the demonstrations of the right wing. And let us say regarding the Palestinian citizens of Israel, that their demonstrations are being stopped even from the beginning. They had to turn to the Supreme Court in order to be allowed to demonstrate a peaceful demonstration. And actually, the Supreme Court said that even in times of war, the right of demonstration is a democratic right, and it cannot be infringed. So they were allowed to demonstrate, but it's not only for us, it's very hard, but for the Palestinian citizens of Israel, it has been really, really hard. And the way that the police has been cracking down their demonstrations and the freedom of demonstration and their freedom of expression has been very, very, very harsh, making us aware that police is already a political tool of this government. Mostly, we can say, of the extreme right, Zionist, terrorist minister of police.
Right. Just to remind everyone, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Jewish supremacist Kahanist, is who Gaby Lasky is referring to. He is the head of the police, essentially. And it's evident.
He's a minister of the police, but he has made himself like the general chief of police, in a sense, which we have already gone to court regarding that, and the court has said that he cannot intervene in such a matter in police activities, but he is still doing it.
Right, he's overstepping the bounds of his actual ministership and doing more, and you've tried to stop him, and will continue. You've actually answered my second question, and so I think I'm just going to bring us all back and start the Q&A, if that's all right with our administrators. So we can get Stav.
Just one thing I want to,
Yes,
if I can say, even in the main street press, several days ago, one of the anchors said that the police has fallen, which means that the police had fallen into the hands of Itamar Ben-Gvir. So we can see how even if the judicial coup stopped, in the sense that they're not trying to do it by through the Knesset by legislation, the real coup is going on every day, even during times of war. And although the right wing is telling us that we cannot make politics during war, they are doing politics all the time. They have changed a lot of policies during the war that really relates to freedom and equality and democracy, in a sense that it's going to be very, very difficult to turn the tables around.
Yeah, what you're saying is that the judicial coup, the project, is itself continuing even if the legislation has stopped. And yeah, we hear you loud and clear. And I want to turn to this question that I think a lot of people are asking in the chat, and that I think a lot of people who aren't asking in the chat have, which is, and this, no one can actually answer this question. So I simply want to hear your feelings and thoughts, which is, how do we, or is there a chance that this government falls? And if so, what happens? And I'm curious, I think I want all of your opinions on this. Is there one of you who for whom this is a burning thing to answer?
I can start.
Great.
I will start by saying that we have to know that most of the members of Knesset today, although they were with us regarding the judicial coup, they are very right-wing, which means there is a liberal camp in Israel, but it's not the same camp that is the democratic camp. Let's say that there is the party of Avigdor Lieberman and the party of Gideon Sa'ar, which were out there in the streets with us during the demonstrations against the coup, but they're not with us regarding what the outcome of the war has to be. They're not with us regarding the two-state solution. They're not with us regarding the equality clause and things like that, which means that I think that if we're able to topple this government, and there will be soon elections, Netanyahu is not going to be prime minister anymore. But it doesn't mean that left-wing liberal democratic policies are going to be the majority in the next Knesset. So we have to be aware of that even that we're out there and we're making the fight for all the citizens of Israel. The next government, although maybe the new party of Yair Golan, the Labor and Meretz party are going to be part of it, maybe it doesn't mean that there is a majority that think that we have to go ahead with a two-state solution, for example, to say one thing.
And if I can add to Gaby, I think that even if we'll have an election tomorrow, when the polls are counting our side with the mandates, they are talking also about the Arab parties. And I think that if our political bloc will not understand that it's time to create a real and sustainable political partnership with the Arab parties, I don't think we can ever get a way out of this political planter that made us go through 5 elections in 3 years.
Yeah. I think that I'm even more pessimist than Gaby and Stav. I'm not sure Netanyahu won't be prime minister if we have an election right now. I think people are starting to forget, or in some ways, the war routine is making people to less see the horrible crisis of October 7th and less remember how did we get to this point, and more just to be in the pain of the war, and the way that the war is radicalizing people to both sides. I mean, I believe stronger in peace because of the war, but people who don't believe in the two-state solution are more forthrighted in their position. And I think that our challenge in the next elections will be, at the same time, not to be afraid to talk about the two-state solution and about peace, but at the same time, not making it the only topic about the elections, because as Gaby said, most of the Israeli public doesn't necessarily agree with us, although it's important to put it on the map, but the challenge of showing how those different things are connected, how October 7th is connected to the governments of Netanyahu not promoting peace, and how this is connected to the horrible fires we had up north yesterday in Israel, which were partly because of the conflict with Hezbollah, but also partly because there is not enough fire stations in the north of Israel because the government is neglecting them for years. So when something like this happens, there is no one to put the fire out. So if we'll be able to, and this will be our challenge, to show the connection between those different issues, and maybe to help shift the map a bit. But I think it will be a very involved elections. We can see the public.
Yeah, what you're saying is almost the title of this webinar, which is you have to help people connect the dots. That there's so many things that are connected to the way that this government has been dysfunctional and also intentionally neglectful of communities, that but it's hard to see, and that's part of our job. So I want to end with some hope. I know that that's hard to find sometimes these days, but I am curious, what is it that gives each of you hope in like 1 or 2 sentences, so that we can keep our hour. And maybe we'll go in the same order if that's okay with you, Gaby.
Sure. Well, I think that we have to first of all, I'm a human rights lawyer, so I have to be an optimistic person, although it's sometimes really hard to find optimism, but that's a given. And second, I have to say that last Saturday, before the big demonstration in Kaplan, I spoke in the demonstrations in Rehovot and then in Nes Ziona. And actually, I spoke about hope. And we have to see hope as a political tool, because when there's hope, there is initiative, and there is action. And we believe that we can change Israel for the better. We want tikkun olam, we want all the hostages back, we want a better Israel for everyone. And what gives me hope is that we have been able for a long time, I don't know how it's in America, but for a long time, the democratic liberal citizens of Israel were very individualistic in the sense that we were not working as a community. In the other sense, the religious are very communal. That's the way of life. And we are not. We're very individual. Let me live my life and I'll let you live yours. But we have created a new solidarity, a new sense of commitment for one another, one new sense of community because of these demonstrations. And we have, then we have each other. And when we have each other, we have power. And when we have power, we can change.
Fantastic. Thank you. Stav?
I want to connect to what Gaby said and to say that although it can sound a cliche, what gives me hope is my partners and all the people that I see daily and weekly struggling together in the streets. And although there are some extremist and very violent people in this society, you can see the total opposite. And I think it's definitely the majority of people that really cares about this place. Like you can see in every single demonstration and activity that people are crying together, even though we don't know any of the hostages or the people that we fight for specifically, but everyone, like the things that ties us together, I think it comes from the bottom of our hearts, and this caring and deep connection to this place, and so many committed, amazing people, that what gives me hope.
Thank you.
I think Stav and Gaby said it all, really, this sense of newly formed community that is fighting for a better future and not giving up, and the resilience of the people in Israel fighting for this better future that Gaby talked about.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you so, so much. What an amazing talk by all three of you. And thank you everyone else for coming. I know that so many of you, both in the chat and also just who I've spoken with over the last number of weeks and months, are asking, what can I do to help? How can we do something from here? And my answer is almost always the same, which is like, educate yourself, which is absolutely what you're doing now. Learn what's really going on the ground. We have another webinar in July. We'll be talking about the Peace Camp and our efforts to envision a more just and equal future for everyone. So you can come to that. You can get connected to NIF through other ways. And of course, support our work. We are building this community. We're acting together. We're building these networks, but we can only do it to the extent that you help us. So with that, again, I want to thank all of you so much. I was inspired personally by this conversation, and I saw also in the chat that so many other people were. Thank you all who came for supporting NIF, and stay tuned. We're still here.